Five, four, three, two, one.
Welcome back to Our Voices. I have a special guest with me. She is the Democrat candidate for the Attorney General for the state of West Virginia. She is Miss Teresa Torresiva. Teresa, how you doing today?
Good morning. It's good to see you. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good. Hey, thank you for coming on to the show here. You are running for Attorney General for the state of West Virginia.
I am.
Before I get into my questions, I have one question for you. Who is Teresa Torresiva?
It's funny you get that question a lot on the campaign trail, and it's a loaded question, right? Because there are a lot of different things I could tell you about myself. I'm a mom. I'm a courtroom lawyer. I think that's pretty important for 30 years of running to be a lawyer. I love being a lawyer. I'm an animal lover. I consider myself a person of the people. I care very much, very deeply about people and about their quality of life. And one of the things I want to do in my life is make the quality of life better for other people and animals, I have to say, top of the list for me. And my work, that's what drives me in everything I do. So I would say that's something to know about me. You'll always find me standing with people.
Teresa, what inspired you to run for Attorney General for the state of West Virginia?
Well, I'm a courtroom lawyer. So I've been politically active for 30 years. Lawyers are politically active generally. And I enjoy government and politics. And I think it's very, very important. And I'm someone who thinks that our leaders are failing us and that there isn't enough diversity, specifically women, specifically people of color. And certainly that's not a diversity that I meet. But certainly as a woman, I bring that to the table. And when I look at our state government, we simply don't have enough of that. I, for example, would be the first female ever to serve as West Virginia's Attorney General. And so that perspective is missing from our government. So, in addition to needing, in my opinion, to bring different voices to our state government that reflect the views of all of us, one of the things that motivated me to run for office also is a need for a higher standard of service and excellence in our government and a higher adherence, a stricter adherence to laws and rules so that our government is fair and acts and conducts itself in a way that's fair. And I don't see that happening either. So we all have a lot of reasons why we're running for office. I'm running to make things better for West Virginia people.
Can you share more about your legal background and how it has prepared you for this role?
So lawyers love to talk about our legal background. I love being a lawyer. It's true. We do love to talk about it. I will not descend into war stories about my work, but I've been across the courtrooms of West Virginia and across the courtrooms of this country for the last 30 years, representing people, working people, workers, regarding wages, regarding job conditions, regarding safety, regarding injuries, regarding all types of matters in court, representing people. And I've enjoyed that work. And we've had pretty good success representing first responders, firefighters, police officers, sheriff's deputies, 911 operators, school nurses, all across the state of West Virginia. And any given time, we're in 20 to 25 counties around the state, assisting and working with those employees and first responders predominantly regarding employment conditions. And so my work is representing and working for and fighting for people and using the courtroom to level the playing field for people because the powerful and the rich have enough lawyers and they have enough money. And people, regular people, need a voice and need to be heard. And in court, we're all the same. So I've enjoyed being able to do that for the last 30 years. And I'm confident I can bring that same leveling force as Attorney General to using the courtrooms on behalf of the people of West Virginia to make sure our laws are properly enforced.
Teresa, what are the most pressing issues, legal issues that West Virginia is facing today?
So that's a great question. And my answer might surprise you a little bit, or it's not so much one issue. So there are a number of legal issues that legal scholars could argue about that West Virginia needs to fix or change or update or get rid of in order to make our laws better. But in general, we have a lot of laws, most of them crafted over decades, and they're pretty good. And what we need to do, in my opinion, the number one most pressing issue facing the Attorney General is enforcement of the laws that are actually on the books. What happens so often is people want the law to shift to fit their political viewpoint, or to address some societal problem, or which is legitimate perhaps, but the laws are written in such a way and have to be honored and also updated and changed, but whatever laws we have to be followed, and not just by some, not by the rich, not by the poor, by everybody the same. And all too often that's not what happens. And I think the number one priority for the Attorney General is to enforce the laws on the books on behalf of the people of West Virginia. Specifically, there are a number of laws that only the Attorney General can enforce on behalf of the people. And so if it doesn't happen, the Attorney General just doesn't do that because maybe there's a focus on some political lawsuit or project that you want to get involved in that doesn't necessarily benefit people, but benefits you politically. That's the problem. We need an Attorney General that's aggressive enforcing the law. Number one priority, enforce the laws that are on the books and make sure the people of West Virginia are protected accordingly. And that's not being done. Our government is not working for people, and we're not even meeting that basic standard.
You just mentioned priorities. So my next question is, what are your top three priorities if elected Attorney General?
So I think the number one priority of any Attorney General anywhere in the country, no matter the state, is and must be, and this is because the way all of our state laws are written, consumer protection. And that's a broad base, very, very aggressive strategy has to come out of the Attorney General's office to protect consumers. That includes antitrust laws and other laws. I would be very aggressive on that. It would be a top priority for me. I would be looking for remedies for West Virginia consumers, much the same way I've been doing for 30 years in the courtroom as a courtroom attorney here in Wheeling and really around the state. The second priority for me would be to expand the investigation of and the investigations conducted by the Attorney General's office. There are outrageous events happening all over the state, or at least events that appear outrageous when you read what we can read in the press based on what journalists are able to uncover. And then nothing happens and further investigation isn't conducted. The Attorney General is vested with the authority to investigate the violation of laws that are for the Attorney General to prosecute and investigate. And if the Attorney General finds criminal laws have been violated, it's for the Attorney General to cooperate with the 50 state prosecuting attorneys. So I would be conducting investigations to get answers, even where a lawsuit might not be the remedy or the answer. Sometimes transparency and exposing a problem, solving a problem through an investigation is often the answer. And my third and one of my most important platforms would be listening to the people of West Virginia about the problems they have in terms of those investigations. And a big one on that right now is West Virginians are worried about clean water. So I would be making that a priority of my administration to address the problems happening with West Virginia's what I call poison water supply in pockets of the state where entire towns don't have enough water. Something's going on, and probably multiple problems. The Attorney General should be at the forefront of investigating and solving that problem.
Teresa, how do you, if elected Attorney General, how do you plan to handle the opioid crisis here in West Virginia?
That's the most common question anyone running for public office in West Virginia gets, and one of the most important. And the answer is that we have to continue. First of all, a lot of what's already been done can't be undone. And I have some criticisms about the way the current attorney general handled the litigation. When you look at how we fared nationally vis-a-vis what I consider how much harm was done here. Nationally, we were number one on harm. And we should have been number one on leading the nation on the relief and the remedy and having the seat at the table and a say and more so. But moving past that, moving forward with the opioid, because the crisis does continue. It's an addiction crisis. It's also it's a foster care crisis. It's a 911 operator, an EMT crisis, and it's a crisis of being able to get critical infrastructure services to people in certain parts of our state where ambulances don't come when you call because they're not available, and on and on. So the answer to that question is that I'll use every power of the Attorney General's office and all of my vigilance to make sure that we continue to direct funds. And by the way, so there's a whole process underway to direct funds, but the Attorney General continues to be in a position to oversee, to make sure laws are enforced and the best interest of the people are in fact met. But what I can tell you about the opioid crisis, if we had an aggressive or a more aggressive Attorney General that was more aggressive from the very start, and I do mean aggressive, using the court system to prevent exactly these types of problems, more harm could have been prevented. We need an Attorney General that does the job, and that means doing the job, going after companies that harm our citizens, and doing it soon and fast. And we didn't see that here. So it's a frustrating topic and a complicated one. We literally could do an entire show on what's next for West Virginia with the opioid crisis. And there are many chapters to it.
Teresa, I want to bring up issues. It's going to be kind of touchy. You represented the police union in Morgantown to prevent them from creating a citizen review board, if I'm speaking correctly.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Please elaborate on that please talk about it.
So I'm happy to talk about that. And I do know that it's a touchy subject in the sense that there are important issues from multiple perspectives on this. And there was a court case in Morgantown where I did represent, by the way, I proudly represent the Mon Preston FOP, standing with the Morgantown police officers who didn't oppose the board itself, but opposed certain powers that the board was going to be granted or have over police officers. And this is a topic that I think is very, very important because there's also some misconception out there about a lot of things. So first of all, the cry for the board arose after things that happened outside the state of West Virginia regarding police brutality and death at the hands of police officers. So there are legitimate concerns and events happening, but outside the state of West Virginia. And there was a move in Morgantown for a review board, and it literally just went too far, and it violated. This is the simple reason. This really wasn't even a big fight in court when you ask the lawyers, and I mean that respectfully. But what I mean is the law in West Virginia is already very, very clear with regard to how we discipline police officers, how we promote them, how we hire them, everything about their job. And that law we call it civil service. It's not unique to West Virginia. And there is a board that governs all of that is not controlled by the FOP, although a lot of people think the police unions control this. But there are 3 members on that board, and one of them is appointed by the FOP. So the FOP has a say, but not control. And the other thing that's really, really important is that I think to understand about the civil services, it's the law and has been in place since the 80s, passed by the legislature. And it specifically says that it is the exclusive system to discipline, promote, hire, fire any police officer, not just in Morgantown, but anywhere in the state of West Virginia. So what was happening in Morgantown, and what the problem was, is the board was looking to have, or the ordinance was looking to grant powers to this board that would have specifically violated state law. And it was clear, and it didn't even get appealed. Judge Tucker really didn't struggle with the legal issue. And again, I mean that respectfully. But the reason I say that, Ray, is because it brings me back to my point. I do think it's important that we have good police officers, that we recruit good police officers, that we train, that we support them, that we hold them accountable. In fact, I think police officers have to be held to one of the highest standards in our society. And I do, by the way, hold them to that standard and respect them also in that way. But what I don't want to see is that we pretend as if the law doesn't exist, or how we're doing it doesn't matter. And by the way, these civil service boards that exist, they are also open to the public. Their work is public. Everything they do is published. None of this is or can be done in secret. And it includes, like I said, the promotion of a police officer, but also if there's discipline, this is the process that's followed and has been in place. So what we really won in court was an easy legal battle, but an important political issue. Right. And that's why it's a touchy issue, but it's an important issue. I represent a lot of police officers that want nothing more than high standards to be followed and met for all police officers, because it brings the entire profession up. And so accountability for police officers is never the fight or the problem. But we can go too far and forget that the men and women who wear the uniform are working people just like you and me, and they're trying to do a job. And by and large, cops are good cops. Police officers are good police officers. I represent dozens, almost 100 police officers against the State Police Academy for misdeeds there. When police agencies abuse power or go too far, they need to be held accountable. But in Morgantown, what it was really about was going too far and trying to and ignoring the law that's already in place. And there is already a method by which citizens do review the disciplinary conduct of police officers. And it's been there since the 80s. And that was really what the issue was about.
Teresa, how do you plan to approach consumer protection in the state?
Aggressively, with a lot of lawyers and in the courtroom. That's how I plan to approach consumer protection in the state. I'll be investigating. I'll be filing lawsuits. I will staff it. I will make sure that the people of West Virginia, and I'll be focusing particularly as well on small businesses who often can't afford a team of lawyers that some big businesses can afford, but they end up cheated. They end up lied to. They end up in a bad situation in a business deal or a consumer deal. And often that can involve the Attorney General's office. So I plan to handle consumer protection aggressively, fully staffed in the courtroom. And what I can tell you is sometimes they say the office of the Attorney General maybe isn't the most exciting position on the ballot. Elect Teresa Torreseva, elect me, and I promise you'll change your view of that, because I will make the office exciting, because I'll do my job for the people of West Virginia, and it'll feel good to have a voice who stands up for people.
West Virginia has a strong stance on states' rights. How would you handle this if it comes into conflict with federal laws as opposed to state laws?
I would always just do what was best for the people of West Virginia, right? Because we're both citizens of the state of West Virginia, and we're citizens of this United States. All of us are, and we enjoy the privileges of both. So what I would do was work to enforce the positive privileges of West Virginia law and federal law for all citizens. But at the end of it, in terms of conflict, I will stand up for the West Virginia people. And that does often mean standing up against the United States government. It does often mean standing up against various forms of government and all its entities. But you'll always find me standing with people. I do think we're strongly a states' rights state. And we often feel ignored and not listened to, but we want to be heard and we want our say and we want to live our way in West Virginia. And I hear that loud and clear on the campaign trail.
What is your stance on environmental regulations as opposed to the coal industry?
So I'm a realist, and I understand that things are happening both internationally and nationally that are outside of our control. But what I won't stand for when it comes to environmental regulations, and by the way, we all want clean water, we all want clean air. Clean water is actually a problem in various parts of West Virginia and unrelated to the coal industry as well. But moving back to your question, in terms of balancing environmental regulations and the coal industry, we are a critical part of this nation's infrastructure and our production of coal, and that's never going to change. And what we need to do as transition occurs that's international and national and economic is we need to stand with workers. We need to stand with the members of the UMWA who mine the coal, who have built this state and this nation into what it is. And so my position is you will always find me balancing by standing, by finding the side of working people and standing there and making sure from their pensions to their jobs to their security and livelihood is protected. And we continue, by the way, to have problems in West Virginia with our miners regarding coal, including the diagnosis, treatment, and taking care of black lung, and seeing that in younger and younger miners. I know that's another topic, but when you balance environmental regulations and coal, where you'll find me asking the questions is, what about the coal miners?
Teresa, what steps will you take to ensure transparency and accountability in West Virginia?
So not to be cute, but I will put that back on the voters and on the public. I think that we are all, first of all, we all have a right, and I actually engage in litigation regarding sunshine laws, which are laws that require our government to be done in open, in public, not in secret, not on a telephone call we can't hear. It is our government, and we. I'm a citizen, and as a candidate for office, I would work for the taxpayers. So full transparency is what I can promise. But what I can tell you is that the citizens must demand it when they see it missing. And everything that the Office of the Attorney General does, except when investigations are pending and things can't be disclosed for reason, only for that point in time for good reasons. But everything the Attorney General's office does is certainly public. That said, I will also be an Attorney General that's available to the media and the press and that speaks as often as I can about the matters of the office.
West Virginia is heavily in favor of the Second Amendment, gun rights. Share your thoughts on that. Some people feel that the left wants to take away your guns.
I have some great thoughts on that. First of all, I've been hearing, I'm a gun owner. I've carried a gun since I was well, let's just say a very young woman. And for me, it wasn't political. It was cultural. Grew up on a farm, hunting, fishing, self-protection. It became as a young woman, a young adult, sure. But what I can tell you is that I'm pro-choice for the same reason I'm pro-gun. I don't need the government in my gun safe, and I don't need the government in my doctor's office. But guess where they are? They're not in my gun safe, even though that's what I've been hearing for a couple of decades. They're coming for my guns. The left is coming for my guns. They never did. They still haven't. My safe is full and it's protected. But you know what's happening? They've come for women's rights. Our kids don't feel safe in schools. We forget that we are a society of guns, and we forget about gun safety. We forget about common sense gun regulations. And even though an overwhelming majority of Americans support background checks, what do? We let the NRA dictate our government. So this is a topic very personal to me. I'm pro-gun. I'm pro-rights. I'm pro-government. Get out of my life. Do your job for me, the people, right? And then step aside. That's what serve service is, government service. The problem with guns is it is used to fearmonger about the left. The left has guns too. We all carry them. We believe in the Second Amendment and the First Amendment. And we also know that some of those amendments have limitations, like when our school children are dying. We have to figure out how to make schools safer. I go to the courthouse, I pass through, and my gun, I can't bring a gun in the courthouse. My gun has to be left in my car or at home. I can't bring a gun to the courthouse. So there are reasonable places we know guns shouldn't be. So we have to get more sensible as a society. We have to get sensible about guns, but I'm pro gun and I'm also pro choice. And I'm also pro civil jury trial, which is the Seventh Amendment, one of my favorites. All of the amendments matters and all of our individual rights matter against a government that's overreaching. But we're not overreaching on guns. Our government, the threat from our government, at least not yet, I don't know if that's what they're coming for next in our rights, but it's against women and our rights regarding our bodies and our daughters' rights. And this issue of forced pregnancy by the government, that's the threat. My gun safe seems fine.
Teresa, the current Attorney General has gotten in line with other states' attorney generals as far as like a class action lawsuit against then it was the Obama administration, as far as I believe the Keystone Pipeline XL. What are your thoughts on that? And do you feel that as if elected Attorney General, you should just worry about West Virginia and not worry about other states? Or share your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. So I think that a lot of what we see in elected officials is they're using the office to help themselves get reelected. I think the attorney general is trying out to be governor, right? And so somebody's always trying out to be something else instead of doing the job. And we can all see when a case doesn't really affect West Virginia or if it does. And we also know that we have limited resources because we're a small state. So the resources of the Attorney General's office ought to be discreetly focused on things that actually bring results back to the people of West Virginia. And it doesn't look like you could name a number of examples. It doesn't look like that's what our Attorney General does. What I see, and I see this out of offices across the state, is I see individuals using the office to promote them individually and their platform in order to promote them to a further stage. You know, in other words, self, instead of helping people and working for West Virginians.
Teresa, how do you plan to work with other state and local officials to ensure effective law enforcement across West Virginia?
So I think that's a very important question. You know, we have 55 counties, a prosecutor in every county elected by the people in charge of prosecuting criminal laws. So that coordination has to happen. But you also have to be, as you're investigating things, you have to be in coordination with other people that are doing the same work. And so what I can tell you is that coordination would occur naturally by me. The beautiful thing is I come to the Attorney General's office with a perspective of law enforcement men and women from having represented them as their lawyer. And so from deputy sheriffs to city police officers and agencies all over the state, there'll be a close coordination with my office in making sure that the laws are followed. The other thing is often the attorney general would investigate, but not have the power to prosecute something that the attorney general might discover that's actually a criminal law violation. So that coordination that you speak of is critical. It's a must that has to come out of the Attorney General's office in order for it to operate effectively.
This brings me to my last question. And you can take as much time as you want to answer this. You ready?
I don't know. So this has been a serious interview with some pretty good, hard-hitting questions. You had me with my hands moving a couple of times.
This is going to be the toughest question, the very toughest question right here.
So
don't get offended by this now. Get ready.
I will not. I'm an attorney, a courtroom lawyer. I do not get offended.
Okay. Why should the voters choose Teresa Torres to be the next Attorney General for West Virginia?
That's a great question. Why should the voters care? Why should they vote for me? Why go to the polls and select Teresa Torres-Saban? The reason is that the court system is open to all of us, but we need a good lawyer to make that so. And the people of West Virginia have a lawyer, and that's the Attorney General. And the Attorney General is a very, very important position to your day-to-day life as a West Virginian. And if the Attorney General does her job, and I will, it's a position that brings a lot of relief and a lot of help to the citizens of West Virginia. The reason to choose me is I already know how to do that job. I'm already doing that job. I've been doing that job for 30 years. And what I can bring to the table and what I will bring is I'll make the job exciting. People tell me it's not the most exciting position on the ticket, Teresa. And I say, wait till I'm elected. It will be, because the people need an advocate, and that advocate is me.
Teresa, I thank you for coming on Our Voices and let me know what you feel and how you are planning to be the next Attorney General for West Virginia. Again, I thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Ray. I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate the thoughtful questions.
Thank you.